Welcome to Exploring Every Angle, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of creatives from all walks of life. I'm your host, Thomas Powell, a video editor immersed in the YouTube space. In each episode, I sit down with guests from the creative world to explore their journeys, unpacking their upbringings, passions, and their goals that drive them forward. Hello, and welcome back to Exploring Every Angle. Today, we have a good friend of mine called Devin Robbins, who is working in the YouTube space like myself. He's currently creative director for Mark Manson, and he's had a lot of other video editing experience over the years. We've been chatting for quite a while now, so I thought he'd be a great guest to come on board and talk about his experience in traditional media and also the YouTube space. So welcome on board, Devin, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So firstly, before we get into the podcast and the world of YouTube and editing, I just want to firstly say, I've said it to yourself, but I just wanted to say it on here as well. Congratulations, you and your wife just recently got married.
Yeah.
You just got back from honeymoon as well.
Yeah.
How was that? And how was your honeymoon?
Oh my goodness, so fun. The wedding itself, you kept telling me over the course of planning the wedding, one of the best days of my entire life. We had so much fun. Seeing everyone you know and love all in the same room all at the same time was excellent. And then we went to the Bahamas for our honeymoon and we just laid on the beach and it was great. We loved every moment of it.
Nice. It's 2 weeks there, wasn't it?
We did 10 days, yeah.
Oh, okay. 10 days.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's still a nice amount of time though. And bet you had some really nice weather there. But I agree. The wedding itself is just such a magical day, isn't it? And it goes by in a flash. Like, me and my partner Emily, it was last September we got married, but I can't believe how fast a day goes, and before you know it's the evening and you're like, whoa, where did that all go? I wish I could go back and replay it. I really do. It's
I hear you.
Yeah. It's amazing, but I'm super glad to hear you had a great time and had a great honeymoon, as I said.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So, as I said in the intro there, you have had a lot of video editing experience over the years. You started off in film school at Toronto. And what initially drew you to video editing, and how did film school shape your approach to editing and, the creative direction that you're doing now?
I think film school was really good at teaching us a little bit of everything. And when I went into film school, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. I think everybody that I studied with probably wanted to be directors, but you kind of figure out what you're naturally good at and you see what your peers are also good at, and then you kind of fall into place a little bit. But when I was in film school, I did a lot of producing, and it wasn't until later that I actually got into editing. But thankfully, they teach you a lot of editing, like the foundational skills that you need to be a good editor at film school. So when I did make the transition over, I feel like I was well equipped to be an editor.
How long was your course? How long did that last?
It was a 3-year program at Humber College, which is in Toronto. And they start very broad. So you learn about film history. You're watching movies from like the early 1900s to understand the foundation of movie making. So they teach you a little bit of everything in film school. They teach you, the basic foundations of video editing. They teach you how to operate a camera. They teach you production and, how to go find financing for your movies. And everything in film school was very catered to the traditional media world. Like nobody talked about YouTube, and it really wasn't even like a career option when I was going to film school.
Wow. Okay. What year was this?
I think I started in 2014 and I graduated in 2017.
So YouTube has grown a lot since then. So that kind of makes sense to why it wasn't kind of on that scale back then. So I wonder what it'd be like today if you were to approach, film school. I bet there's a lot more in it.
I have the same question. And I've heard that there are actually programs in America now where you can study specifically for being a YouTube creator. I think University of Southern California has it. I haven't looked into it too much, but at the time, I remember there being a big disconnect between the content that I really liked, which was YouTube, and the content that they were kind of pushing us towards, which was traditional movie making or television making. And I think that's probably merged a lot more since I went to film school, but at the time it was very, very separate from each other.
So where did your initial inspiration for film and editing come from then before you joined the film school at Toronto? Where did that spark initially ignite?
Yeah. I mean, you probably don't know this about me, but I was an actor when I was a kid, and I was in TV commercials. Yeah. I did a couple TV commercials. I did some for McDonald's. There was a little candy called a Baby Bottle Pop. I did a commercial for them. There was a Canadian children's television show that I was a part of. And every time that I was filming something, like, I was just the most fun that I've ever had in my entire life. And I realized that I didn't really want to be on camera as much. I preferred doing the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And, you know, after all of that, I decided it was time to go to film school and pick it up as a real profession.
That's awesome. No, I didn't know that about you. So that's super cool to learn that.
I don't tell many people. I keep it secret.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think like that happens to a lot of people as well that are kind of interested. Like my friend Will, who I did the first episode with, before he got into like editing and then filmmaking, he used to be like an extra, and he was in quite a few movies. He was on the set of The Walking Dead and, you know, quite a few other things.
Oh, nice.
And he transitioned as well. It sounds like you were much younger though when you did it, because you were like a child. So that's pretty cool. So was there anything from that point that like really stuck with you and you really learnt from, at any kind of moment specific you can think back to that time of your life that kind of stays with you now?
I mean, just being on a film set is like living in a different world. Like, have you ever been on a film set? I
can't say I have. No, I don't think so. No.
See if you can do it. Or like sometimes they'll do like live studio audiences for talk shows or for sitcoms. And I just find it like the most incredible experience ever, because you get transported into a different world kind of thing. Yeah. And for me, my uncle was an actor, and he was sometimes in movies, particularly like in the horror film section, and he invited me to film to set sometimes, and just seeing how all of the gears turned and 150 people all working together to achieve something that, you know, nobody sees. They only see the finished product. Like, that is super special. And so anytime I get the opportunity to be on set, whether it's for a movie or TV show, or like as I went into reality TV, and now even with YouTube, I don't know, it just feels different than regular life.
Yeah, no, it's always really fascinating to see all the pieces like behind the scenes that no one else sees. That's something as well I love as an editor. When you're putting together a video, you see so much and you do so much to the video that a lot of people, like just the general audience, won't really pick up on or understand really. Like, if for example, thinking about, like, for me, family members, like especially the older generation, they'll look at a video sometimes if I showed them one that I've edited and not really know what's gone into it. So I think when you kind of have the inside look in to see, all those different pieces that kind of, you know, like the little cogs in the machine, it's always really interesting to see. So that sounds amazing. And I'd love to go on a film set. I don't believe I actually have, but I always like the look of those US sitcoms, you know, like the old school ones like Friends, where they had the live audience. They always look amazing. Me and my wife, we love sitcoms, and that'd be great to go on one of those.
Yeah. My wife and I, we're going to Los Angeles in a couple of weeks, and part of the plan is to hopefully find a live studio audience to sit in. They're all free shows. Like, they want a full audience. So they give out the tickets for free. Like, they don't charge you money for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What big sitcoms are going on right now in America that I can't
there's one. There's a spin-off of Young Sheldon. That's the only one that's really caught my eye at the moment. I don't watch the show yet, but there was a period of time when they kind of stepped away from the live studio audience, and they just did kind of single camera shoots. But I might be coming back or making a resurgence. But you can also do like talk shows and stuff. I've been to Jimmy Kimmel, you know, The Price is Right. I did an episode of Jimmy Fallon. Like, you can go to any of these, and it's so fun.
Yeah, my wife Emily, she's done. Do you know? It's obviously worldwide. I don't know if you have your own Canadian version, but do you know, like Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent? Do you have a
Yes,
Canadian version?
yes.
Yeah, my
We
wife's been
do,
to one
yeah.
of those. You know,
Nice.
and been in the audience whilst I've been filming, you know, the
Yeah.
auditions.
And you know what? It's great for learning as well, because as much as
Yeah,
it is entertaining to see how everything is filmed, like you're also kind of studying. You know, you're
yeah.
seeing how they place the cameras, where they place the cameras, where lighting is placed, the sequence of events that leads up to calling action. Like that was all
Mm,
stuff, especially when I was younger and in film school, and even before that, just kind of observing the space. There's no better
yeah.
experience than like practically sitting in there and watching it all happen.
So, as you mentioned, you've worked in traditional media, and one of the shows that you worked on was the Canadian version of Big Brother, and that's another show me and my wife absolutely love. We're watching the UK
Yeah,
version since it launched last year. It kind of like got revived over here, and it's been on again this year. We love it. What is it like being part of a large production of a reality TV show like that?
it is a lot, particularly with Big Brother, because they call action on the first day and they don't call cut for like 75 days later. And just the
Wow.
scope and scale of it all. It's like 88 cameras,
Mm,
112 microphones, all happening,
yeah.
you know, everything's happening all at once. So it is a really great place to jump into the industry, particularly Big Brother, just because there's
Mm,
so many moving parts.
yeah.
Um, it's like a full production house, like a full, like a, like a factory almost.
Yeah, 'cause it's one of the, if you're looking for the like TV show experience, especially in reality TV show, that's probably one of the biggest things you can go into because like the UK version here, they like have the main show, then they have an after show. And then on that after show in the background, you can see all the screens, like of all the different
Nice.
cameras, like being
Yes,
monitored.
yes,
So
yeah.
I can imagine how
Yeah.
much work must just go into that.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like we had two full studios, two full warehouses, and then the actual house where the contestants lived was in one
Okay.
studio, and then the front of the house was in a separate studio. And then above all of
Okay.
that was an entire floor for the video editors and for all the people who do graphics and animations.
Mm.
And everybody else kind of like just works around that section. But
Wow. Okay.
I think we had 88 cameras or something, but only six of them are recording all at once. The other
Right.
ones are all on standby. And there's a
Yeah.
position called a snooper who watches all of the cameras and tries to find what story is happening at that moment. And so that's how they kind of like
Oh.
manage all of the media, because it would just be overwhelming if you're constantly recording that many cameras, that many microphones all at once.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because it'd just be like imagine how much footage you'd have. But so there's someone's
Right.
job to just literally be like eagle-eyed and watch all the cameras pretty much and point out what's happening and picking up all the different storylines. That's super interesting to hear. So how long were you working on Big Brother?
So I did two seasons. The first season, I was an intern because when you graduate from film school, you have to do a co-op program, and they give you a handful of different things that you can work on. And the one that I chose to work on was Big Brother. And so I did an internship there for one season, and then they brought me back for another season. And then after that, I felt like it was time to move on and do something
Yeah.
new.
No, that's super cool. And how long after that then was so you went to film school. Was that quite soon after film school? Was that your first gig?
Yeah, you can't graduate unless you have done a certain amount of hours at the end
Okay.
of the instructional portion of it. And so for me,
Hmm.
it was like you have to do a full season's worth of Big Brother, which I think was 69 days or 71 days or something like that.
Oh wow, okay. So that was part of the graduation process then.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. One of
Oh
the
awesome.
biggest benefits to film school actually is they throw you right into the industry. At least the school that I went to
Mm.
does.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of talk about whether or not it's worth it, but one of the things that is absolutely worth it is you kind of hit the ground running when you're done.
Hmm. No, that's cool to hear. And you've done quite a bit of work in traditional media in general. What are some of the key lessons you've learned from your time working within the TV world? And is there anything that you learn that you've kind of benefited from then moving into YouTube?
I think a lot of the biggest lessons from traditional have already kind of found their way in YouTube. But
Hmm.
one recurring lesson that happens over and over again is fix your problems in pre-production so that they don't happen in post-production. Like it's
Yes.
such a common saying. Oh, we'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post. No, fix
Mm-hmm.
it in pre-production, and then it won't be a
Mm-hmm.
problem. It's so much easier to fix in pre-production than it is to fix in post-production.
Agreed.
Sounds like you agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. If you can iron out all the potential issues
Yeah.
as like before you film, so you don't have to then have it like it pop up in the editing process. Like it just makes everything so much smoother. Yeah, no, I can absolutely agree on that point there. But yeah, I guess in a way, when you think of YouTube now, it has changed a lot. It is more like traditional media, isn't it? Because you're seeing more and more like documentaries popping up on YouTube. You're even seeing versions of like reality TV shows now. Because I don't know if you followed it, but the Sidemen launched their own like version of Big Brother. It's just interesting to see that kind of area is kind of in YouTube more and more, like as the years have gone on, and it just never used to be a thing. Back over a decade ago, it used to, the main thing I think was just vlogs and creators sitting down in their bedrooms with their cameras, talking to the camera. It's amazing how much more evolved it is over the years.
So I've been following Neil Mohan quite closely. He's the CEO of YouTube. He's only kind of been in his role for a year or so, but it seems like with his intentions and everything that he's talking about, he's really, really trying to, he's identifying like Netflix as a key competitor, like just by all the things that they're doing. Like if you looked at the YouTube upfronts a couple months ago, they're changing the interface on YouTube TV so that it looks more like Netflix. And to me, that says, to your point, it's like, yeah, they're definitely scaling up the quality of the production on YouTube, and it's not just vlogs anymore. But the thing that I'm really, really interested in is, as we pivot towards that, or as Neil Mohan prioritizes beating Netflix, are we going to be able to preserve the vlogginess and the lo-fi content on YouTube? Because that's kind of like what YouTube has been for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And if we lose that, then we're just going to be another version of Netflix. And I think there's like a really nice purity to keeping YouTube very lo-fi, very accessible for everybody who wants to become a creator.
Yeah.
That's something I'm excited to watch next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there needs to be a way of, like, I like that direction they're trying to go, where they are kind of making it feel more bigger budget, like Netflix, make, like bring series to channels, but I think they also need to hold the charm of what YouTube. Yeah, for sure. I feel like there has to be a balance there where it doesn't like one doesn't take over the other. Then they both need to be their own thing. Like I would be upset if that type of content eventually faded out, because that's what YouTube always has been. And I will always, even though we've got, real big high production, shoots now that get, turned into these crazy videos from like, people like Mr. Beast and other huge channels, I still think I enjoy just watching the smaller stuff as well, of just as simple as someone just picking up their camera, going out somewhere and going on an adventure and watching them as well. So I agree there. I think it'll be interesting to see how exactly they kind of implement making that kind of type of content and how they push it, because I know this has been a thing for a while, and especially with creators like Michelle Khare, they're wanting to drive more kind of series based content out there. So it's definitely an interesting space, and it feels like there's going to be a load of new things, happening with YouTube, especially with even shorts. They're making those longer as well. What's going to happen there in YouTube shorts, So it's going to be interesting to see.
I trust the YouTube makers. They've done well so far, so I trust them, but I'm also very curious.
So going back to transitioning from traditional media into the world of YouTube, because that's now currently what you're doing and you have been doing for a fair few years. What was one of the biggest adjustments you had to make shifting between those two mediums?
I think as a video editor, one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I first made the pivot into YouTube was that I didn't understand what the audience expects out of a YouTube video versus,
Right.
a television commercial or a traditional media piece. For example, I think one of the first things that I ever interviewed for when I was looking for work in YouTube, Hayden Hillier-Smith was hiring for Sam and Colby, who are now this super mega big channel, but at the time they were quite small. And you had Hayden assigned all of the people who interviewed for the position a task, basically a trial edit. And I submitted my trial edit, and then I heard back nothing. And I was like, what the heck? This is a great trial edit. I know I did a good job. I feel like I deserve this role. And then the video from the footage that Hayden edited himself came out, and I watched it, and I realized, I edited this video in a way that's meant to be on TV. It's a lot slower paced. Right. It doesn't have the feel that YouTube had at the time. I spent, too much time editing things that were actually not important for a YouTube edit, but were important for a TV edit. And to me, that was like the biggest lesson. Like, you have to understand the platform that you're editing for. YouTube has a very different feel than traditional media. And it took me a while to learn that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, there's some things that work well that you can take, I think, from traditional media in YouTube, but there's some things that just don't work well. Especially when it just comes to learning how videos are just paced and stuff. It's totally different ball game. So no, that makes sense. From my experience, obviously, I've just been totally in the YouTube space completely. So if I ever made a jump into traditional media and worked on something, I'd probably see, those challenges face on as well, like you have there, but the opposite.
Like, if you put both my edit and the one that actually made it onto the YouTube channel side by side, I think mine was 50% longer, because I started every scene with a very long drone shot. The music swelled up. And at the time, Hayden, more than anybody else in the space, was known for just kind of here's the scene, everything moves lightning quick. Yeah. That's changed slightly over the years. Now I think you have permission from the audience to be slower with your video editing, but the whole Mr. Beastification thing was just getting started. And I needed to learn that.
You said then with the Mr. Beast kind of style editing, when it first started, that when that became a thing, it was very you didn't have the moment to breathe. It was very we're doing this, and now we're going here, and then this is happening, and then it's very to the point. It's I've got to tell you everything that's happening right now before you click off this video.
Yeah. It was story progression at all costs. You could not let a single second escape. Otherwise, someone would click away and not watch anymore. Yeah.
Which, it served the purpose and it did its job. I'm just happy that we can have other types of content now as well, though, and audiences seem to be a bit more up for staying longer and not.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm over it. I'm over this beastification. Give me something new.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in the YouTube world in general, you've worked with quite a few creators now. Mark Manson, who I mentioned at the start, you worked with Mike Shake. That's how we actually came to know each other. We both worked for Mike Shake at the same time. You were doing long form, I was doing short content, and you also worked for Leon Hendricks. They've all got very different styles. So how did you tailor your editing style to suit each of those creators at the time?
Consuming a lot of their content early on. I think when you first start working for someone, especially as a video editor, there's a lot of upfront work that needs to be done. You need to consume a lot of their content, which is exactly what I did. I watched almost every video that each of those creators made. And just kind of setting expectations as well. when I was first starting out a relationship with these creators. I would say things like, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, but there's probably some editing things or some creative choices that you make that you don't even realize not everybody catches on to, So for those first couple of videos, just really making sure that it's like a collaboration back and forth. And at the end of the day, like, I am not those creators. Those creators are succeeding on YouTube because of their unique voice. And as long as they understand that, like, I am not them. And so they'll need to provide feedback even years into the working relationship. I've been working for Mark for 1.5 years now, and he still says things like, oh, I actually wouldn't say it this way. I would rather do this kind of thing. And as long as the creators know that, and it's a good back and forth dynamic between the creator and the editor, things are going to work out. But as long as you do your homework up front, watch a lot of the content, try to see what the unique characteristics are of each of those creators, you will succeed.
What's one thing you've enjoyed the most working with each one of those? Are there any key things there you learned from each one that you kind of still hold today?
Sure. With Leon, he was the first creator that I worked with when I pivoted into YouTube. And at the time, I think he had 100,000 subscribers. So, he was still very early in his own creator journey. So it felt like we were kind of learning together, which was really, really helpful for me as the editor. When I pivoted to work with Mike had already been crushing it for 2 or 3 years. And he understood retention-based editing, or the Mr. Beastification of things. And so there was a big contrast there. And so I leveled up very quickly when I started working with Mike. And then when I finally pivoted to work with Mark is a hugely successful author. He'd been a blogger. He'd written a number of books that were all bestsellers. And he came into YouTube having an understanding for what good quality content is, but not having a ton of experience making it. So after leaving Mike Shake, I actually came in kind of as like a figure of authority working with Mark. And that was really cool. And now since then, Mark has leveled up, and he's just as incredible at YouTube video making as he is at writing books. And now it's a really cool dynamic between he and I and the rest of the team.
That's super cool, man. Yeah, I find that's with some creators, it can be like sometimes they're almost a mentor and you're kind of learning more from them. Or you can have it the opposite way around, especially if it's a smaller channel as well. They kind of lean on you more. And it's nice having both those varieties. I do like it sometimes when I feel like I could pass my knowledge on. I think that feels quite nice when you're able to do that.
I agree. They say, like, editing specifically, it's especially on YouTube, it's kind of like being a co-creator in some capacity. And so after working with someone for a little while, you learn off of each other, you level up as a team. And as an editor, you start to see your own work kind of embedded in the DNA of the videos. And when that performs well, like, nothing else could be better than that feeling.
So when working with creators who already have established audiences, how would you balance your own creative input and maintaining their brand's established style and tone?
Well, I think if you're joining a team, it's important to spend the first little while learning everything about it. Don't race to change everything, because the reason they're hiring you is because something is working and they need it to work even more. So give yourself that time to learn. But after a couple of months or whatever it is, you might start to see opportunities to voice your opinion about things, make suggestions. For me, I'm really into like storytelling. Like, I learned a lot of really good storytelling rules when I was back in traditional. And I think if there's ever an opportunity for me to chime in with my work with Mark, it's in that area. And so if I see an opportunity like, oh, our storytelling can be tighter here, or, oh, we're missing an opportunity to go off and learn somebody's backstory, or to progress the story quicker or slower, that's where I chime in. And then the other thing that's really important is to remember that the creator has the final say on everything. So you can give whatever opinion you want. It could be, in your mind or in my mind, the greatest idea that's ever had. If the creator that you're working for doesn't want it, you have to be able to, like, let that go and realize, no, I'm not the one that's in control. It's the creator that's in control.
So over the years since we've been speaking, we always talk about YouTube because obviously both, I'm an editor. You've done a lot of editing, and obviously, mainly more into creative direction now with Mark. But that's what a lot of our conversation is about. And I find you're always a guy I can go to that always seems to know everything about like different channels or people within the YouTube space. Like whenever I have like a creator pop up on my radar or someone within a network, I always go to you first and say, "Oh, have you heard of this person?" And you always seem connected. So what's your approach to connecting and building these relationships in the YouTube world, and how has that impacted your career as well?
Yeah, it's funny. First of all, it's just an obsession with YouTube. Like I just study it like crazy. If I ever have downtime, I'm always listening to a podcast about YouTube or watching it, and looking out for new creators. So just keeping my finger on the pulse is the first thing. But one of my absolute favorite things to do is to just put out an email to someone, or just tell someone that I liked their podcast episode, or send someone a tweet being like, "Hey, okay, I really liked the video that you just made." And you know what? Like 9 times out of 10, you'll hear nothing. But 1 time out of 10, they'll respond and they'll say, "Hey, that's really cool. Thank you so much." And then that plants the seed. And then, a couple months down the line, you say, "Oh, I really like this too." Or you say you find an opportunity to provide value into their life. And so I've just been doing that for like 4 or 5 years now. And as a result, I feel like very connected, which is cool. And one of my favorite things to do for Mark, he's also very connected. Like he's a very popular figure in the book writing space, and now on YouTube as well. And I still feel like I can connect him with people that he doesn't know. For example, I connected him with Michelle Carre like maybe 2 weeks ago, and then they hung out and had lunch. And then Michelle had a big screening of her latest video at a theater in Los Angeles, and he went to it. And to me, that's like very rewarding. It's value that I'm providing to Mark that I don't think other people are providing. And it all just kind of starts with being okay with sending out a bunch of emails that ultimately lead to nothing, because every now and then you do get something.
Yeah, I agree. Just kind of approaching him with a compliment, or anything like that. I do like to do that as well. I've tried it quite a lot, and like you said, sometimes you don't get anything, and it's just nice to put your foot in the door, like you said. Like one tactic, I guess, I've had over the years, being an editor, is I'll do that, but then sometimes if I see a creator that I really would like to work for, I'm like, I would love to work for this, this creator. I'll often put a video together, and just send it them. I've done that quite a few times as well. So that's kind of the same thing there. Yeah. And I think that's quite nice, especially if I've done it if a creator's not posted the job ad, and it can just be random. And sometimes I have had it where I don't get anything back. Sometimes I've had it where I've made a creator a short, and they've come back and they've posted it and said thank you very much, and then that's it. I've had it where they haven't said anything at all, and then I've had it where it's led to interviews, it's led further down the line, and for some people, I ended up working with them as well. So I've had quite a bit of success doing that. So I think it is a good thing to do.
I send out a bunch of emails that end up going nowhere. We put a video out last week or 2 weeks ago for Mark's team, and it was about Portugal. And why Portugal is the most anxious country in the world. And so I used ChatGPT to look up the 10 most popular Portuguese news outlets. And I sent out emails to all of them saying, "Hey, we just made a really cool video about your country. If you want to check it out and write a little article about it, I might be able to give you a little quote from Mark as well." And ultimately it led to nowhere. Like nobody responded to me. So there is, like I said, a lot of the time you get nothing, but that's okay. Like that's part of the game. At the end of the day, I wasted maybe 30 or 40 minutes, but imagine if one of those worked out, and imagine a big outlet in Portugal actually watched and wrote an article about Mark's video. How many more views would we have gotten, or how much more positive or negative publicity would we have gotten in Portugal, the place we made the video about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've always got that attitude of why not just go for it? Like the worst you can get is just no
Is a no.
response. Like
Yes.
it's better than not doing it at all and just being like, oh, what could have happened? Like try.
Exactly.
You just never know. And sometimes as well, like even like going back to when you just said just praising someone, and you might just be going to them and generally a fan of what they've done, and you're just passing on some nice compliments, and you're not really going in at the angle of to get on board to help them. But then they could come back to you and see that like you work within that space, and they might then offer you something off the back of that as well. I have had that.
I've got so many funny stories about that. Like, for example, Colin and Samir are very popular in the YouTube space, and they have a newsletter called The Published Press. Anybody who hasn't subscribed to it should absolutely subscribe to it. It's incredible. But they have a writer. Her name is Hannah Doyle. And I was just really blown away with her journalism and how she was able to put out 3 issues a week all by herself. And so I messaged her on Twitter. I said, I can't believe that you're doing this. You're doing an excellent job. You know, I love reading the Published Press. Every time it comes into my inbox, I click on it right away. And she responded like, oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that. And then 3 or 4 months down the line, she said, hey, I'm writing a story about video editors. Do you want to be interviewed from it? I was like, sure. And then all of a sudden, now I'm in an issue of the Published Press, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just never know what's going to come from it. It sounds like you have gotten work from it as well. Just going in with a positive attitude, reaching out to people and seeing where it takes you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's super awesome that you just, that kind of led to then you being featured on there. I've been I don't think I've been featured. I have been featured in articles, but not like that. But I did get quite a few, I guess, mentions on the site Vouch before that was acquired by Mr. Beast.
Yeah, you were on the front page.
Yeah, so that was just making, I guess, a connection with Patrick and keeping that up with him. And for anybody listening, if just to fill some context of what Vouch is, Vouch was a platform that helps creative people, editors, script writers, thumbnail artists find work. Basically, that's what it is. It's a job posting board for creatives. And I was on there, and very kindly, Patrick, he liked to promote my profile quite a lot on there. And so, as Devin just mentioned, I was on the front page, and he did. He seemed to push my profile quite a lot, and I was really appreciative of that. It was really cool. It's always nice.
More job opportunities as a result.
Yeah, so quite a few interviews actually and talks. Did I? I guess it's a strange one. I guess I can kind of say yes as well, because I worked with 2 creators, King in it, as you know.
Nice.
I actually applied for them, I think through Vouch and YT Jobs, because they put it on both, but they came back to me on YT Jobs. So that one could have classed. I had, as you know as well, I've had 2 or 3 opportunities. I think it was 2 opportunities actually. Yeah, with Yes Theory. One of them was through Vouch. One of them was much later. So it's led to connections for sure. And I think that's the main important thing. But yeah, for the one that stands out to mind is definitely King in it. But yeah, they're great people. They were. I really like my time with them.
I know. I love their videos. The ones that you edited for them were some of your best work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, they were awesome. They're very creative individuals. They make some real good content. So if anyone's listening and they like travel / DIY type content, there are a couple that used to travel around in a bus basically, and they converted it into like a home on wheels. They've now bought their own home, their first home in Scotland, which they're now renovating. And one day I hope that they can come on this podcast, because I'd love to talk to them on here. They've already expressed an interest, but I think I'd love to get something sorted out and get them on at some point.
There you go. There's your pitch.
Random question. If you weren't working in the YouTube space or just editing in general in the TV world, what would be your next occupation? Do you know? Is there something else that you could picture yourself doing?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've
Mm,
heard this question asked, and it's so hard because for me personally, I'm
yeah,
just very, very invested in YouTube from a career angle, but also just like I love it as a fan. You know, it
yeah,
really is the thing that I spend all my time doing. So
yeah,
how could you do anything different?
yeah. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. I think if I had to pick one, it'd probably be something to do with maybe music, but yeah, I don't know
That's
if
what
I'd
I
be
was gonna
very
say too.
successful.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I'd be as successful as that, but I just think it'd have to be something creative where I'm physically making something. That's why I jumped to music, because it'd still be that approach of making
Yeah.
something, putting something together.
That's where my head goes to. Music producing would be so fun. I would love to
Yeah,
actually genuinely try it sometime in the future, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I've kind of got an on-off process at the minute. Trying, I haven't done it for a few weeks, I must admit, but I am trying to learn the ropes a little bit. I used to do it a lot when I was a teenager, then I stopped, so it's been
Oh,
years.
right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, nothing crazy. It's just all home taught stuff that I used to try, and I started learning the guitar when I was a teenager as well. Stopped again, which I've picked up a few weeks ago, but I need to try it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that has been another interest, so I think it would make sense. That would probably be my thing.
I have an interesting theory that good video editors are people who also have dabbled with an instrument or play an instrument, because I think
Mm,
learning how music works is very like the skills there directly cross over into editing, because editing is all about
it is.
pacing and rhythm. Like it has a lot of the same foundation. So if you learn an
Yeah,
instrument, it'll improve your editing. That's
yeah,
my
no,
theory.
exactly. No, absolutely. I agree. Like, and you got like in editing, you have your whole sound design as well that you have to
Hmm.
implement, and you have to
Hmm.
piece everything together like a jigsaw puzzle. And that's just how I see making a song as well. It's like you're
Yeah.
piecing together a jigsaw puzzle, and it forms some, whatever the end result is exactly the same. So yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. You've achieved a lot in the world of video editing. Are there any other types of projects or content that you're interested in exploring down the, further down the line? Do you have any goals at the moment set in mind that you want to fulfill in the future?
Yeah, I think with Mark right now, we're on a big push, or we have a big mission to make content that is worthy of being shown on Netflix, even though YouTube is where we're at. We want to have the quality of something that could be on Netflix, and so that's what we're working towards right now. But I kind of feel like once we hit that goal, there's going to be new things to work toward. And I'm really
Yeah,
enjoying my time with Mark. So whatever Mark is working on is probably something that I would also want to be a part of. We have a podcast also, and I would really love to get our podcast into the top 100 in America. It's like 55 or 56 overall in Canada, but in America, it's a lot harder to break that top 100. And so if we have more creative resources, or if we put more thought and time into it, I think that's something that we could do. Um, it would be fun to, instead of using like stock music, like have our own composer and work with
oh
someone
wow, yeah,
to make our own music. Like some YouTubers do that. Johnny Harris does it. I believe Mark Rober does it. It would be cool for us
yeah,
to do that as well. But it all kind of stems from YouTube, I think.
yeah. That's some good some goals there for you. And you're kind of, what you're aiming for at the minute with Mark. So yeah, no, that's super cool to hear. And yeah, I think that'd be an awesome one just to add on there with what you said at the end with music production. I think it is cool if you can you could have your own composer sometimes. It kind of adds a new element to the videos, doesn't it? And it
Yeah.
makes, I think it can make videos stand out. There's the one creator as well that you actually introduced me to. I know he does a lot of his own music and jingles in his videos, and that's Preston Goes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
his is more just like goofy though for fun, but I
Yeah.
love it when when he's when I watch one of his videos and he'll just go like with whatever he's doing in the video, and then suddenly it'll go to a musical montage. It's like, um,
Yeah.
yeah, amazing. So you yourself, based in Canada, and you have mentioned a few times to me that you have pondered sometimes with the thought of like living in the US as well. What's the main difference between Canada versus the USA, and what type of things do you like from both countries?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this for a long time. So I grew up, like I was born just on the other side of America, like within 15 minutes, you
Right.
can drive to the United States. And we would often go and get our
Okay.
groceries and our gasoline in the United States and then come right back. So I
Wow.
always had like a little taste of what American life is like. From a television and work perspective, like the scale of the projects of reality TV or movies that they make is just so much bigger. They have a much bigger potential audience than we do in Canada. And so everything that gets made in America, whether it be like Big Brother or The Bachelor or MasterChef, it also gets made in Canada, but it's done on like a budget that's 1/10 the size. So
Right.
part of me would love to work on the American version of these shows because it would just be
Yeah.
like a playground having access to so much money and production value. But on the other hand, it's very, very comfortable living in Canada. I think Canadians are known for being very kind and polite, and I really like that. It's very safe. Um, the weather sometimes plays along, and sometimes you get really heavy snowfalls, which I don't love personally, but you know, it's a good place to live and work.
So for I guess if you had to pick weather-wise, though, you would probably pick somewhere like California, I bet.
You know what? It's very common for people in my area to buy a little vacation home in Florida. They call them
Right.
snowbirds. And as soon as the
Okay.
first snowfall hits, they fly to Florida and they spend 2 months there and then they come back here.
Wow.
That's my dream.
Okay. Thanks, Devon, for joining me today. This has been a really great episode of Exploring Every Angle. I've really enjoyed diving more into the world of editing, seeing as that's my, profession. It's been nice to have you on and talk about more like the ins and outs of YouTube and stuff, but learn about your background, particularly when you started out with the film school kind of side of things and also traditional media. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's been fun chatting with you, man. Good to see you. If we
Yeah,
never see each other, we talk for a year and a half. We never see each other.
I know we do voice notes so much, don't we? I do love a good voice note, but yeah,
Oh
it's
my
nice
God.
to
Yeah, you've gotten me so obsessed with voice notes. I send them out to everybody now, and everyone's like,
everybody.
why are you voice noting me? Why don't you just text me? I'm like, no, you don't understand. Voice notes are the best.
But everybody I speak to, I just do voice. I've got some people that didn't really do voice notes as well that I've converted into
Oh yeah.
regular
Yeah.
voice note people now. Yeah, no, it's just easier. And when you work remotely, it's like it's nice just to use your voice and hear someone else, like rather than just using
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
It's better. Yeah, I think it's good to do. And I think there's so many things as well. I do it sometimes when I talk to some like even creators. I'll leave them a voice note because there's some things I can word better if I'm actually speaking rather than because
Totally.
when you leave a text message and sometimes you can't always work out the tone of it. Like
Exactly.
I like to do a voice note as well, especially sometimes if I'm like I don't know, like if I got an idea or I'm leaving some kind of critical feedback to like a video I'm working on to the creator and I'm trying to tell them why exactly I've done something, I'd
Yeah.
rather do it a lot of the time in a voice note than typing it out because I just feel like I could get my point across better and I can express exactly
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
and what my thought process was there, and it just makes more sense to them then.
Sometimes Mark will leave me an editing note and it will say,
Mm.
we should change this, period. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, is he mad at me? Did I do something wrong? But if it comes
Right.
as a voice
Yeah.
note, it can be said as like, we should change this. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, you're not angry. You're just
Yeah.
making an editing suggestion, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been using them for years, and yeah, I can't see myself stopping anytime soon. But yeah, I think like it's good to. This is another thing why I think I'm enjoying the podcast, doing these as well, and getting people on because it's nice to chat over a video call And I've been wanting to do it for a while. I wanted to network more recently, this year especially. So it's nice getting on these, talking to people, and learning more as well. So yeah, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Exploring Every Angle. Stay tuned for more episodes to come. I'll see you again very soon. Bye.